Finally, the day of my engagement, my best friend cheated on me. I called her and she said she forgot about it. How is that possible? Later found out she was in touch with my future husband. Revenge is coming. I remember how Rebecca and I were inseparable from the start. Two kids dreaming big in our small New England town. Growing up, our days were filled with spontaneous adventures, lazy summer afternoons by the river, secret hideouts in the woods, and endless conversations about the future while sitting on creaky porch steps. We were more than just friends. We were sisters, bound by shared laughter and countless memories that seemed to promise an unbreakable bond. Those early years felt like the calm before any storm, a time when every sunrise brought hope and every challenge was just another adventure we faced together. I recall our endless summer evenings spent in our favorite local diner, our voices mingling with the clatter of dishes and soft hum of old tunes. It was during those moments that we planned out our dreams, imagining a life where nothing could ever tear us apart. Even now, when I think back to those carefree days, there's a bittersweet quality in the memory. It's not just nostalgia, it's the awareness that everything beautiful has its limits. At that time, I never could have guessed how the entrance of another person into my life would eventually test the strength of that once unshakable friendship. During that magical time, our friendship blossomed in ways I had never imagined. Rebecca and I found ourselves in the center of a small, vibrant world, filled with shared dreams and secrets. Evenings at our cozy local cafe became our private sanctuary, where we would confide our ambitions, laugh uncontrollably over silly jokes, and even shed tears as we mapped out the paths our lives might take. Every corner of our town held a memory. The quaint cobblestone streets where we raced each other home after school, the old park bench that witnessed our whispered plans for the future, and the summer fairs where we danced under the stars, feeling like we had all the time in the world. I remember one particular night when we sat on the rooftop of my childhood home, gazing at the endless sky. We talked about everything from the stars above to our deepest fears and wildest hopes. It was then that I realized how much I trusted Rebecca with every piece of my heart. Those conversations, filled with raw emotion and unguarded honesty, created an unbreakable bond between us. It was a time when every shared smile and every tear reinforced the belief that our connection was eternal. Little did I know, however, that even these golden moments were the calm before the storm, a prelude to the changes that would soon challenge everything we once held dear. I still remember the day Daniel stepped into my life. It was as if the air itself shifted when I first saw him, his eyes carrying a spark of creativity and mischief that immediately drew me in. Daniel was an artist, vibrant, charismatic, and effortlessly talented. His presence injected an energy into my world that I hadn't known was missing, and soon, every conversation, every moment we shared, began to revolve around him. I found myself swept up in a tide of new emotions, each one more intense and exhilarating than the last. Yet, as I became captivated by this fresh, creative force, I began to notice a change in Rebecca. In the background of my newfound joy, there was an undercurrent of unfamiliar coolness. At first, she masked her distance with smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes, and her congratulations sounded hollow. I tried to brush off the nagging feeling, attributing her behavior to mere surprise at the rapid shift in my life. But deep down, I sensed that the arrival of Daniel had shifted something fundamental in our delicate balance. A quiet tension that hinted at secrets and emotions yet to be revealed. It started with the little things that I initially tried to overlook. At our usual catch-ups, Rebecca's responses had become curt. Her laughter seemed forced, her eyes drifting away even when I was pouring out my excitement about Daniel. I remember calling her one evening, expecting our long, animated conversation, only to be met with monosyllables and a strained silence that made it clear something was off. Even our in-person meetings at the cafe felt different. The warm, familiar energy we once shared had been replaced by a subtle, uncomfortable distance. I began noticing small details. The way she hesitated before answering my calls, the short, clipped texts that felt more like obligations than heartfelt messages. It wasn't that she openly rejected my happiness. Far from it. She merely seemed to withdraw, as if retreating behind a wall built by unspoken words and unshared feelings. When I mentioned Daniel's latest painting or his quirky sense of humor, her nod was polite but void of any genuine warmth. The gradual shift in her behavior hinted at deeper, unresolved feelings that were slowly undermining the bond we once took for granted. Though I tried to rationalize it as a temporary reaction to the new dynamics in my life, a growing sense of unease settled in. Something was changing, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our friendship was on the brink of a transformation I hadn't anticipated. The night of my engagement celebration was meant to be a fairy tale affair, a sparkling evening in a chic loft in downtown Boston, filled with laughter, music, and the promise of a bright future. I had meticulously planned every detail, from the elegant decor to the carefully curated guest list. However, as the evening unfolded, it became clear that something was amiss. The air was charged with a tension I hadn't felt in years, and much of that unease centered on Rebecca. As I mingled with friends and well-wishers, I couldn't help but notice Rebecca's stark contrast to the festive atmosphere. While everyone else adorned themselves in vibrant celebratory attire, she appeared in a muted, almost nondescript outfit that seemed at odds with the occasion. Her presence was marked by a barely concealed disdain, a quiet, pointed reminder that she was no longer part of my world in the same way. I could feel the weight of her silent judgment as she moved through the crowd, her eyes occasionally flickering with what I could only interpret as veiled sarcasm. At one point, amidst the clinking of glasses and soft hum of conversation, I caught her whispering to another guest. The tone of her voice was icy, and the words, though muffled by the ambient noise, carried an unmistakable hint of betrayal. It was in that moment I realized the party was not just a celebration of my future with Daniel. It was also a stage for long-hidden grievances to come bubbling to the surface. The tension in the room escalated, leaving me to wonder if the ties that once bound us so tightly were fraying beyond repair. In the midst of the celebration, as I was trying to enjoy the festive buzz, my phone rang unexpectedly. It was Rebecca. I hesitated for a moment, knowing that this call could change everything. When I answered, her voice was icy and laced with sarcasm, a stark contrast to the warmth I was used to. Her words cut deep as she accused me of building a life on false memories, claiming that every cherished moment we had shared was just a mask to cover her own hidden resentments. She didn't hold back. Rebecca's tone was bitter, and every sentence dripped with unspoken hurt. She insinuated that I'd always seen our friendship through rose-tinted glasses, while she had quietly nursed a secret longing for Daniel, something she claimed that had defined her every choice. The shock of her revelation left me reeling. I tried to interject, to find a space for understanding, but her words were relentless, each accusation landing like a dagger. The conversation spiraled into a volley of harsh truths and raw emotions. Rebecca's voice grew louder, the bitterness unmistakable as she recounted every moment she felt overlooked. Every memory that, according to her, was nothing more than a facade masking her real feelings. As I stood there, caught between disbelief and sorrow, I realized that this was not just a phone call. It was the unraveling of a bond I had once believed was unbreakable. The turning point came unexpectedly during the engagement celebration. In a moment of desperate need for attention, Rebecca escalated the tension into a full-blown public spectacle. As I mingled with guests and tried to maintain the festive atmosphere, she suddenly commandeered the stage, demanding everyone's attention with a cascade of harsh words. The air instantly thickened with shock and disbelief. Her voice, once soft and familiar, now resonated with bitter accusations that reverberated around the room. Before I could react, things took a disastrous turn. In her fervor to make her point, she lost her footing. One moment, she was vehemently proclaiming her long-held resentments, and the next, she slipped on the slick stage, falling in a way that laid bare every ounce of vulnerability. The fall was both literal and symbolic. Each gasp from the crowd punctuated the humiliation that engulfed her. In that chaotic instant, whispers and smartphones converged, capturing every second of the debacle. The images and videos spread rapidly across social media, turning our once private drama into a public spectacle that magnified the pain and betrayal. Watching Rebecca, so desperate for validation, yet so utterly exposed, was like witnessing a slow unraveling of a trust that once seemed unbreakable. The room, filled with stunned silence and murmurs of disbelief, bore witness to the collapse of what had once been an unshakable friendship. In the weeks that followed the scandal, I felt as if I was living in a haze of raw emotions and shattered illusions. The fallout was overwhelming, a swirl of hurt, regret, and the stark realization that some bonds, no matter how deep, can falter under the weight of unspoken truths. In the quiet aftermath, I found myself at a crossroads. The betrayal cut deep, yet amid the wreckage of our former friendship, I began to see a glimmer of hope, a possibility to rebuild and rediscover who I truly was. With Daniel by my side, steady and reassuring, I started piecing together a new life, one built on authenticity rather than the fragile illusions of the past. Every day became an opportunity to heal, to embrace genuine connections, and to understand that personal happiness sometimes demands difficult choices. I immersed myself in creative pursuits and honest conversations with those who supported me, slowly shedding the layers of pain that had clouded my vision. As time passed, the memories of Rebecca and the tumultuous events began to fade into the background, serving as poignant reminders of both the beauty and the cruelty of human relationships. I learned that moving forward isn't about forgetting, but about growing, transforming the scars into lessons that empower you to trust again, albeit more cautiously. This new chapter was not merely an escape from the past. It was the forging of a future grounded in truth, resilience, and the quiet strength that comes from knowing when to let go and start over.